Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Love Meets Literature. Today's episode is going to be discussing some September new releases, which we are both very much looking forward to. I'm your host, Rachel, and you can find me on Instagram at Paperbacks and Sketchbooks.
And I am your other host, Joe, and you can find us at Love Meets Literature.
Please do give us a follow. You can find us virtually everywhere. It will help us immensely. So how has your past week been?
It's been good. I finished ACOTAR today, actually.
Oh, nice. Finishing a book is always a great feeling.
It is a good feeling. I ended up rating it 4 stars.
Solid rating. I also rated ACOTAR 4 stars on my first read.
I am now moving on to my next book, which I haven't fully decided on yet. I think I'm going to finally go back to the Witcher series. It's been a while. I think I'm ready for some more Geralt and Yennefer and Dandelion and everybody else that has complex names that I don't remember. So I think that'll be my next one. But ACOTAR was a really good read. I'm looking forward to discussing it. I have, I think, a lot of strong feelings that are probably different than a lot of other people. So I guess we'll see.
Probably the majority of ACOTAR readers are not male. So it will be interesting to hear your opinions on stuff that happens in that book.
Yeah, I think I want to line up the next one as well pretty high up on my TBR because I really liked the book and I really liked the story and I'm very interested in what's going to happen in the second one.
Yeah, the second one, honestly, my favorite. I love A Court of Mist and Fury.
I guess they don't have like a cool acronym for that one, huh?
It's ACOMAF.
ACOMAF? That's funny.
But I think you'll enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. Things really start to ramp up in that book and it gets so good.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
But besides reading, how has life been treating you otherwise?
It's been all right, you know.
Yeah, I know.
The weather has been very hot, which I'm not a huge fan of. It's always that feeling, you know, when you get to the end of summer that you're just kind of sick of the heat.
Yeah.
And I'm really at that breaking point. I'm very much over it. I'm ready for some nice, cool, calm weather.
Yeah, it's been so hot and humid and rainy and storming, and it's just been odd weather recently. But I read a news article saying that it's because of corn sweat.
I feel like I've grown up around corn my entire life, and I don't know if I've ever really heard that term.
That's the same thing my dad said, because he said he saw the same article and he was like, what on earth is corn sweat?
I've never heard two people put those terms together.
I'm not sure if it's a new phenomenon that meteorologists are trying to make a thing, because I don't think I've ever heard any farmers or anyone in agriculture use that term before either.
No, we even had, I can't remember the acronym for it, but there was like a vocational class that you could take at my high school that was specifically about agriculture. I think it was called like ag or something like that. And I'd never heard any of them talk about corn sweat. And I feel like if people were going to talk about corn sweat, it would have been high schoolers.
Yeah. And I saw another post on corn sweat today by the same meteorologist guy. I don't remember his name. It just keeps popping up on my Facebook. I've trained my Facebook algorithm to give me corn sweat articles now.
Yeah, apparently.
And this guy went to an actual cornfield with a plastic bag and he tied it around a corn stalk and then took it off. And he was like, whoa, the corn is actually sweating. It's perspiring. There's water droplets falling off of it. Which in the picture there was, but also everyone in the comments was like, well, yeah, you put a plastic bag over it. What do you expect?
Yeah, that's kind of like...
It could be condensation, you know? Humidity just building up. It doesn't necessarily have to be the corn actually sweating.
Yeah, I guess it's the fact that the temperatures are high enough to make the corn perspirate. Like, I don't understand how it's... If you put a bag over it, obviously it's going to get extra hot. Like, I'm trying to read a little article about it right now, and I don't think I understand it.
Yeah, the thing from what I've gathered is that because the temperatures are so hot, the moisture is kind of evaporating out of the corn and it's going into the air and it's making our air muggy.
I'm reading an article about it from Scientific America, and they're talking that it's actually the same phenomenon that happens from the Gulf of Mexico. The moist air streams up from it, and it causes the weird weather to happen. And I guess it's also happening in the Midwest because of corn, and so they've deemed the name corn sweat, which I still think is just so odd. But
why do they have to call it corn sweat? Like, I'm sure we could have come up with another name for it.
yeah, we really dropped the ball on that one. It's a very interesting map. You can clearly see that Illinois specifically is like hit the hardest by this. And then all of the Gulf Coast is hit by this. Actually, a bunch of the lands around the lakes and things like that, because a lot of them have corn in their areas, like into Michigan, Indiana, even up into Wisconsin a bit.
Well, we do have a lot of corn in the Midwest.
We do. We have a ton.
But enough about corn sweat. That science stuff is so boring to me. I gather your week has been okay then, aside from the hot outdoors.
Yes. How has your week been?
My week's been pretty good, honestly. I've done a lot of ARC reading. I've been reading a lot of my advanced copies that I got on NetGalley, trying to catch up a little bit before September starts, because in September I want to read only books from my actual shelves.
We'll see about that.
Well, it's actually going to happen because I joined a couple Instagram challenges, and one of them is a bingo board, but you can only read books off of your TBR.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I think that challenge will force me to actually read my shelves.
I hope so.
It will. It will. I'm not planning what I'm reading off my shelves because I'm just not a planned reader. I can't do that. I'm 100% a mood reader. So I'll just, pick books off my shelves one after the other, I guess. But it's so overwhelming. Like, I don't know what to start with because I have so many.
You should, flip a coin or do, a number generator and just pick a random book.
I guess. I asked my sister what one I should read, and she gave me a suggestion, but I don't feel like reading her suggestion.
See, this is your problem. Because if you were to pick one randomly, you wouldn't feel like reading that one either.
I know. I just gotta sit down with one and really get into it. But for now, I'm focusing on my ARCs, and then September will be my actual physical shelves. I've just been loving reading on a Kindle recently. There's just something about it that I'm very much enjoying.
I agree. It is nice to read on a Kindle or a tablet or something. Even my phone sometimes.
Well, I like how it tells you how much time you have left in a chapter, so I can kind of plan on when I will stop reading and then start again, because it gives me a timestamp. I don't get timestamps when I read physical books.
No, you kind of just have to guess based on your own reading speed.
I know. And then if I look at the clock and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read from this time to this time, that says 30 minutes total. And then I notice that I only read 15 pages in 30 minutes. It just makes me feel bad.
Yeah, on a Kindle too, it always feels like I'm reading lightning fast.
Yes.
And I think it's because it's a smaller screen, so you're usually having to move more.
Yeah, but this week I'm feeling pretty good because I've been knocking out these arcs. Some of them obviously were DNFs. I did not finish a couple of them for valid reasons, I feel like. One of them just had too much swearing, too much cursing. Someone kept using a certain word as an adjective every other sentence, and I was like, I can't deal with this. So I had to DNF it.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it in reading terms, but I know for TV shows and movies, that gets very old very quickly.
It gets so annoying. Dude,
Yeah.
Just use normal language. We don't always have to say a bad word.
Even talking to people in real life who have sailors' mouths,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I'm kind of over it.
Yeah, just calm down. And then I DNF'd another one as well, but I don't remember why I DNF'd it. But anyway, in total, I'm working on knocking out 4 arcs. And I'm currently reading actually an arc right now that's based around Christmas, which Why am I doing this to myself? Well, it's because I ended up DNFing like 2 of my fall themed ones just because they were not to my liking. And I'm very respectful when I give my feedback on NetGalley for why I DNF'd a book, because it's like I didn't like it, but other people might like it.
That's true. I think that's important, especially I feel like with books where there a lot of times the topics are much more specific. So you might not like something, but doesn't mean there wouldn't be like a fan base for it or something.
Exactly. But an arc that I did finish recently that I really liked was 4 Weekends and a Funeral by Ellie Palmer. I mentioned it at the tail end of last episode, and it actually ended up being a 5-star read for me.
Wow.
It was really good. It kind of reminded me of an Abby Jimenez book because it did have rom-com vibes, but it did have this deeper underlying theme of grief and loss and working your way through that. So that was really good. It was a Grumpy Sunshine and a Forced Proximity novel, which I have not read a ton of those types of romance books. So Grumpy Sunshine, the trope where either the guy or the girl is like always in a bad mood, and then you have the other person who's like super happy-go-lucky all the time. And then Forced Proximity, where 2 people who don't really like each other are forced to be near each other for an extended period of time.
I just think the term forced proximity is weird. It reminds me of like a cybersecurity term. I don't know why.
Interesting. Well, this book, in short, it was about this girl who was dating this guy and they broke up, and then a few weeks later he died. So she's at his funeral, and at the request of his sister, she pretends that they were still dating at the time of his death because his family didn't know that they broke up, and she didn't want to spring it on them that, hey, he's actually my ex and I'm just here out of respect, because she felt bad.
Gotcha.
But then it spirals into this whole thing, and she has to lie to pretty much everyone that, yeah, they were still together when really they were not, and they both had kind of moved on. And she ends up having to clean out his apartment with his best friend. And for some reason, his best friend is just like really standoffish towards her. Mainly that's just because he was processing his grief and life and everything. And she was lying to him. She was lying to literally everybody about it. But then, like things go on. They're forced to clean this apartment together for 4 weekends, hence the name of the book, 4 Weekends and a Funeral. And, they kind of start to like each other over time. And it turns into attraction. And then she can't lie to anybody else anymore. And she comes clean and she's like, oh yeah, by the way, we actually broke up before this tragedy. And the way it was done, it was actually done really well. It may sound stupid from me talking about it, but it was actually so cute and so adorable. And the tropes were done very well. And it was a very good book, and I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend. It's out already. It came out August 6th, so fairly new release. But it was really good. If you like a deeper romance, it was perfect.
We have very different tastes. I really don't. That does not strike my fancy, is how I will phrase that.
But once you're reading it, you're like, oh, this is actually really good. Because
I mean, I don't doubt that.
For the first chapter or 2, I was kind of like, I don't know about this. But then it kept going and I was like, okay, I can vibe with this. And it was really good.
If I go and my buddy starts dating, I guess we would have to break up for that to happen. But I'm rising out of the grave and I would be like, nope, not happening.
But you were already exes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. It's just odd to hear that it was his friend.
Well,
but maybe
yeah.
the book does it in, like you said, in a cute way that doesn't feel like it's in a negative way. Because if they had already moved on from each other, then I guess that would be, fine.
Yeah, no, it was done very well. I really liked everything about it. I had pretty much 0 complaints, hence the 5-star rating.
Right. And I guess that goes in to say about the whole fact that you said that it's covers deeper topics, because that is a deeper topic,
It was really, really, really good. So today's episode, obviously, September new releases. We each have a few books that we are looking forward to that are coming out in the month of September, which September is, I guess by the time you hear this, it is already here, which I cannot believe that September is already here.
Yeah, the year went by quick.
Very, very quick. And it's just going to keep going by even faster.
Yeah, because the back half of the year is always the fastest because all the holidays.
And we've got a wedding to plan still. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, things for that are like mostly done, but now it's like finalizing things.
Right, but that plus the holidays, we're going to be so busy come November, December, January.
Yes, but it will all be worth it.
True.
Before we jump into our September new releases, I have to know, I haven't gotten an answer out of you about this. What are you currently obsessed with?
I have two things I would say.
Okay.
One of them is not an obsession, but I've like taken an interest in again, which is fantasy football. It's that time of year.
It is that time of year for you non-football watcher.
Yeah, and that's the part that's odd is like I don't really like, well, it's not that I don't like football. It's just I've never been like a sports guy.
Yeah.
Like I'll watch things more in passing, but I never usually go out of my way to do so. But this year, for whatever reason, it's just really caught my attention. I watched a couple of videos online of like specifically the fantasy football aspect because I really want to beat my coworkers this year. So that's the reason for this. And they were just like talking all the numbers and the statistics and everything. And that really drew me in. So then I just kind of like started watching strategy and I realized like this might sound obvious to other people, but I was like, I didn't know that there was strategy. I thought you just, picked your favorite guys or picked the ones that you thought were going to do the best. So that seemed pretty interesting to me. It turned it more into the game aspect, which I really liked.
I mean, if I were participating in fantasy football, I would just be choosing whatever dudes to be on my team because I know literally nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've always like done. I've always just been like, oh, I know this name, I'll take that guy. Or, oh, this guy looks like he's got high numbers, I'll take him. Like I never employed any strategy or anything.
And then lo and behold, all your guys are like on the bench for the whole season.
Yeah. Last year, like every single one of my dudes were injured. And I'm like, what is going on?
You cursed him.
That's what I get for picking all the old veteran guys.
Well,
What are you going to do? The other obsession that I have is I've restarted Naruto again for like the 10th time in my life. And every time I go to watch it, which for anybody that doesn't know, Naruto is an anime, and I'm watching it again, and it's just so good. The writing is great. The action scenes are great. Everything just... There's obviously complaints. The big one is like the female characters in the show are often not written very well, which is, it's not much you can do about it now. It's already all written and everything like that. So that's a bit of an annoying like thing, is like a little reminder. Some of these characters that are incredible, they end up not as amazing as you want them to be. But in the beginning, the first show of Naruto is like perfect. I love it so much.
I have never watched it, but I think I can comfortably live my life without watching it.
I think that's fair. I think you have to have like... Anime is a hard thing, I think, to get into because there's so many times like the writing and the tropes that are in anime are, to us, like Westerners, typically very annoying. Like they like to do the trope of like having one really obnoxious character all the time, or like yelling all the time, or acting like over the top, as where in a lot of like our shows and movies there's like subtlety. So, but it's not mutually exclusive. It's just some of the things I've noticed, at least with the older stuff.
All right then.
What have you been obsessed with this week?
I have been obsessed with trying to recreate the strawberry shortcake latte from the coffee place across the street, and I have finally nailed it. It is the most delicious coffee creation that I've ever created. Well, not created, that I have recreated. And it's all I want to drink. I mean, it's probably really not that great for me. It is like really sugary and sweet, but it's coffee and it's caffeine and it gets me through the morning.
Yeah, that's true. When people joke about making, the grown man his milkshake in the morning, that's probably a little bit more in tune. There's a lot of sugar and milk and things, but it is delicious. It's so good.
It's so, so good. And I can't believe that I finally got it right. I've also been trying to recreate the Starbucks pumpkin cream cold brew, which is a bit trickier because Starbucks has a very specific consistency to their cold foam that is not the easiest to recreate. I either make it way too thick or way too thin, and when I do try and like make it in the middle, for some reason it just like doesn't work, or it doesn't taste exactly right. Like it tastes fine, but it doesn't taste exactly like the Starbucks one.
Yeah, I think they also use, don't they have that big like industrial mixer thing
Yeah,
for their foam?
they use actual blenders. I just use a hand frother, which
Right.
works fine for at home. I mean, I guess I could make the foam in our blender. We do have a brand new blender,
We do. That's true.
so it might work, but it's tricky. And I've been experimenting with different things to get an accurate pumpkin flavor. I think I need to make their pumpkin sauce and then put that in the foam, and then I think it will taste the same.
Yeah, I could see that.
So that's what I'm obsessed with, playing barista at home. And I think I'm ready to dive in to some September new releases.
All right, let's do it.
So the first one that I am very excited for is Home for the Holidays by Taylor Hahn, and this publishes on September 24th. For wedding singer Mel Hart, the holidays have always retained a certain magic. Her mother, Connie, always managed to pull off spectacular Santa hijinks that convinced Mel to keep believing in Santa way longer than other kids. Those moments meant everything to Mel because the rest of the year, life was unpredictable because of her mother's alcohol use. But 2 weeks before Christmas, Mel gets a call from the hospital. Her mother has died. Then a woman shows up on Mel's doorstep, claiming to be Connie's estranged best friend, promising to tell Mel a different narrative. One in which Connie was almost a famous country music star, if only a man hadn't gone in the way. Instead of spending Christmas alone in her dead mother's house, Mel agrees to stay with Barb for the holidays, finding herself in the middle of Barb's complicated family and uncovering secrets while fighting an attraction to Barb's in the middle of a divorced son. As Christmas approaches, Mel reckons with how little she knew about her mother's past while re-examining her own future. So obviously this is a Christmas-themed book, but it is coming out in September, and it is a much deeper story. It's not going to be one of those lighthearted Christmas books. This is very deep, and it's going to possibly have some triggers for a lot of people, so just keep that in mind before picking this one up. So this one is definitely on my list to check out when it releases.
I'm noticing a theme, at least with some of the other books that we're going to talk about, where death is a is a very common theme between a lot of these books that I didn't realize until you started talking about yours. But I do think that this writing or this theme makes for a very interesting story.
I think it will. It's going to have that deeper look at possibly addiction while staying, I guess, a little bit lighthearted in the sense of the holiday spirit.
Yeah, I think hopefully the holiday spirit part is kind of what pulls you back out of it. You know, once you start hitting those deeper themes and concepts and things like that, you can kind of pull yourself out and be reminded of, like, you know, the positive Christmas spirit, hopefully.
Yes, I hope so. But this is one that I'm looking forward to. A Home for the Holidays by Taylor Hahn, again, releases on September 24th.
Mine is The Village Library Demon Hunting Society by C.M. Wagner. A librarian with the knack for solving murders realizes there is something decidedly supernatural afoot in her little town in a cozy fantasy mystery. Librarian Sherry Pinkwhistle keeps finding bodies and solving murders, but she's concerned by how many killers she had to track down in her quaint village. None of her neighbors seem to be surprised by the rising body count, but Sherry is becoming convinced that whatever has been causing these deaths is unnatural. When someone close to Sherry ends up dead, and her cat, Lord Thomas Cronwell, becomes possessed by what seems to be an ancient demon, Sherry begins to think she's going to need to become an exorcist, as well as an amateur sleuth. With the help of her town's new priest and an assortment of friends who dubbed themselves the Demon Hunting Society, Sherry will have to solve the murder and get rid of the demon. This mix of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Murder, She Wrote is a lesson for demons and murderers alike. Never mess with the librarian.
That is so true. Never mess with a librarian.
No, they know where all the books are. I think this just seems fun. I've seen Murder, She Wrote, like some of the episodes that is, and they always are more like lighthearted. They can touch on deeper things, but most of the time they're pretty light. So I would assume that this story is going to be the same way. Obviously, there's lots of talk of death and demons, so keep that in mind, but it definitely seems interesting.
Well, it says this is a cozy mystery, and cozy mysteries are always so much fun because you don't get like all the gore of like an actual murder mystery. You just get them solving the mystery.
Right, kind of that satisfaction of the solve rather than all the extra.
Yes, and for some reason, cozy mysteries always have a lady and a cat.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Lord Thomas Crowell, the little cat in this book.
Very cute name.
It's just funny to me.
This one comes out September 24th. I guess they all come out September, but this one is on the 24th. That was The Village Library Demon Hunting Society by C.M. Wagner.
That sounds cute. I might have to add that to my list too. The next one I'm looking forward to is The Hitchcock Hotel by Stephanie Roble, and this one publishes on September 24th. Popular Publishing Day, September 24th. Alfred Smedel is not your average Hitchcock fan. He is the founder, owner, and manager of the Hitchcock Hotel, a sprawling Victorian house in the White Mountains dedicated to the master of suspense. There, Alfred offers his guests round-the-clock film screenings, movie props, and memorabilia in every room, plus an aviary with 50 crows. Gross. To celebrate the hotel's first anniversary, he invites his former best friends from his college film club for a reunion. He hasn't spoken to any of them in 16 years, not after what happened. But who better than them to appreciate Alfred's creation and to help him finish it? After all, no Hitchcock set is complete without a body. So I took some film classes in high school and college, and obviously we watched some films by Alfred Hitchcock. And it's just always fascinated me because he is so good at making things creepy and haunted and scary just by using various film techniques. And it's been a weird fascination of mine. So whenever someone mentions that something alludes to Alfred Hitchcock, I'm like, I'm in. I will read that. I will watch that. Like, I loved the series Bates Motel. I watched, I think, all of it. I don't know if I finished the last season, but that had themes around Alfred Hitchcock. And so that was fun. And I'm very much looking forward to reading this one.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
It does. It's going to give me the perfect Halloween spooky vibes, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely need to find this one somewhere before Halloween.
Yeah, I'm very curious on what the Hitchcock Hotel would look like.
Well, I wonder if it's kind of going to be like a Psycho situation.
Yeah, I could see that.
You know, the lady getting stabbed in the bathtub.
Yeah, with the dun dun dun, dun or whatever the music is.
The music really makes that scene really, really extra creepy.
Yeah.
So again, that was The Hitchcock Hotel by Stephanie Roble, and it publishes on September 24th.
My next one is The Lightning Bottles by Marissa Stapley. Jane Pyre was once half of the famous rock and roll duo, The Lightning Bottles. Years later, she's perhaps the most hated and least understood woman in music. She was never as popular with the fans as her bandmate and soulmate, Elijah Hart. Even if Jane was the one who wrote the songs that catapulted the Lightning Bottles to instant, dizzying fame, first in the Seattle grunge scene, then around the world. But ever since Elijah disappeared 5 years earlier and the band's meteoric rise to fame came crashing down, the public hatred of Jane has taken on new levels, and all she wants to do is retreat. What she doesn't anticipate is the bombshell that awaits her at her new home in the German countryside. The sullen teenage girl next door, a Lightning Bottles superfan, who claims to have proof that not only is Elijah still alive, but he's also leaving secret messages for Jane, and they need to find them right away. A cross-continent road trip about two misunderstood outsiders brought together by their shared love of music. The Lightning Bottles is both a love letter to the 90s and a searing portrait of the cost of fame.
That one sounds so good.
I think this sounds super, super interesting. I love that it's got the little twist of finding him or the idea of finding him, but also this like sort of internal conflict that Jane seems to be dealing with. And then obviously this teenage girl next door seems to have some form of misunderstanding with her life. So it seems interesting, pretty deep, I would say.
It seems very, very good. I'm always drawn to books that kind of have to do with the 90s grunge music scene for some reason. I'm not sure why, but that period of time just really interests me.
I'm just surprised there's so many books about that, you know?
There's a few here and there, but they're not super common. So when I do come across one, I'm like, that sounds good.
Yeah, but there was another one you read, right? That was kind of in that vein, I thought.
Well, I read one called Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Right, that was the one.
And that one was about a fictional band that was supposed to be based off of Fleetwood Mac. And
That's right.
that one was really good. I believe it's now an Amazon Prime Video series. I've only watched the first couple episodes, so I need to finish it. But it was a really intriguing book.
Interesting. That was definitely the one I was thinking of. That was The Lightning Bottles by Marissa Stapley, coming out on September 24th.
I am also looking forward to So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison, and this one publishes on September 10th. Sloane Parker is dreading her birthday. She doesn't need a reminder she's getting older or that she's feeling indifferent about her own life. Her husband surprises her with a birthday weekend getaway. Not with him, but with Sloane's longtime best friend, troublemaker extraordinaire Naomi. Sloane anticipates a weekend of wine tastings and cozy robes and strategic avoidance of issues she'd rather not confront, like her husband's repeated infidelity. But when they arrive at their rental cottage, it becomes clear Naomi has something else in mind. She wants Sloane to stop letting things happen to her for Sloane to really live. So Naomi orchestrates a wild night out with a group of mysterious strangers, only for it to take a horrifying turn that changes Sloane's and Naomi's lives literally forever. The friends are forced to come to terms with some pretty eternal consequences in this bloody, seductive novel about how it's never too late to find satisfaction, even though it might taste different than expected. So Rachel Harrison writes horror, if you can't tell. And it's kind of more like the satirical, over-the-top horror, but not really, but it kind of inches towards that vibe. So I read Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison last year, and I absolutely loved it. It had the whole cult thing going on, and it did have some over-the-top moments, which I actually really liked. I thought it made the story super fun and interesting, and it kind of like took you out of the horror a little bit. So it's not like scary horror, it's more of like creepy horror, cult horror, that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading this one.
The creepy, culty horror is also another good fit, I guess, for like the Halloween coming up. So I wonder if this one is going to kind of get you in the Halloween spirit as well.
It better. I found Black Sheep at the library literally right after it came out. So I wonder if the library will have this one.
Maybe.
It does interfere with my September of reading only my shelves, though, if the library has this one.
That's true. Maybe you could save it for like the beginning of October.
I'm going to have to put this on hold ASAP. That was So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison, publishes on September 10th.
All right. On to We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. Solving murders is a family business. Steve Wheeler is enjoying retired life. He still does the odd bit of investigation work, but he prefers his familiar routines, the pub quiz, his favorite bench, his cat waiting for him at home. His days of adventure are over. Adrenaline is daughter-in-law Amy's job now. Amy Wheeler thinks adrenaline is good for the soul. Working in private security every day is dangerous. She's currently working on a remote island protecting mega best-selling author Rosie D'Antonio until a dead body and a bag of money mean trouble in paradise. So she sends an SOS to the only person she trusts. As a thrilling race around the world begins, can Amy and Steve outrun and outsmart a killer? So if you can't tell, the theming again, right? Just like everything is murder and detective.
Well, because we're coming up on October, which people are going to be wanting to read Halloween things.
That's true. This book is actually, I believe it's the 5th book in a series, but I think it's like one of those standalone type series where it's the same characters or similar characters. They're just, in different scenarios. But one of the books that he wrote called The Thursday Murder Club is apparently a really big book. I haven't heard of it, but it's also becoming a movie. They're doing the filming for it this year.
Ooh, so I have heard of the Thursday Murder Club, and it is in fact a series. I haven't heard of this one though, so it's interesting. He's releasing another one. That's exciting. But that series has been on my radar, so I definitely want to read it. Even if it is a series of standalones, I always like to read them in order. Maybe it's just a me thing, but I feel like there could be information in previous ones that would help you understand things in other ones.
Right. Like the fact that he's retired in this one, I would assume that in the other ones, maybe that's just a common theme that he's like trying to retire, but he keeps getting dragged to it. Or maybe he has retired in like the last book or something. I'm not sure. But it seems like these can be read individually, but it is part of a larger series. But that was We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, and that comes out September 17th.
Very exciting. My next one also comes out on September 17th, and it is Can't Help Falling in Love by Sophie Sullivan. Lexi Danby is looking for some no-strings fall fun. Once a college track star, she was forced to drop out when her father passed away. Now she's trying to make ends meet while putting herself through school and caring for her grieving mother. When her bad waitressing lands her directly in the path of a handsome, charming stranger named Will, Lexi may just have found the distraction she's been looking for. Their first date looks promising until a misunderstanding at a party thrusts Lexi and Will into a fake engagement that they can't talk themselves out of. And Will turns out to be a member of Seattle royalty. Will Grand is heir to a major company and Seattle's most eligible bachelor. But he's been placed in charge of an important merger with a company that values family above all else and needs to show them that he's settled down. While a fake engagement is advantageous from a business standpoint, it's not so great for a budding relationship with a woman who's wary of commitment. As Lexi gets a taste of Will's glamorous world and the pair keeps up the pretense of their fake engagement for the press, they decide to see where a more casual relationship takes them out of the spotlight. And amid apple picking and comfy flannels, outdoor breweries in the crisp air, and fun Halloween preparations, Lexi starts to realize the scariest part of the season might just be taking a chance on love.
This is what I call the Hallmark movie special.
It kind of read like a Hallmark movie special. So I actually already read this one. I got an advanced copy from the publisher. I read it through NetGalley. And I actually thought it was super cute. My final rating for it was 4 stars. It's very insta love though. Like the second she sits down at his table at the restaurant that she works at, like boom, they're in love. So I'm not a big fan of that, which is why it loses a star. But it did do the fake dating thing well. Although I was kind of confused why everyone assumed they were engaged at this party because literally that word didn't even pop up in previous interactions. But whatever, I went with it. There's also themes of grief and mental health, which made the story a bit deeper than surface level. So that was good to see. And one thing that was super interesting about this book is that instead of following just one character, instead of following just Lexi and her life, it also followed Will and his life. So we kind of had these 2 different storylines, one for Lexi and one for Will, showing their home life. And then we obviously had scenes of them together. So that did provide me a better understanding of who these characters are, and it did make me care about them. So points for that. And I just thought it was a pretty unique story. I mean, it is your, average fake dating romance, all that kind of jazz. But it was good and I enjoyed it. And I mean, I read it in one day. So solid read for fall. I would definitely put this on your radar if you are a romance reader. If you like cute romances, it was cute. So Can't Help Falling in Love by Sophie Sullivan publishes on September 17th.
You know what I'm surprised about when it comes to, because I know like nothing about the romance side of things, but it seems like the fake dating trope is like all the time. Like I feel like I always hear you mention that.
I think it's because fake dating is kind of easy to write. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not a romance author, but you can do a lot of things with fake dating.
I guess that's true. It's like there's like a lot of levels to it.
Yeah. Like in this case, Will and Lexi were fake engaged.
Right. And then like in some cases you're lying to just one person or you're lying to everyone. Or in this case, it seems like, since he's a bit of a socialite, there might even be like press involved and stuff. So
yeah. And usually fake dating, it's not really your only trope. So like you can have an enemies to lovers with fake dating and that makes the story different. This one was like insta love and fake dating. So it made that story kind of different. You could do a whole slew of things with fake dating.
it's just interesting. I never realized how prevalent it was everywhere. So just something new.
It's probably one of the more popular romance tropes right now.
Good to know, I guess. Okay, my next one is A Place to Hide by Ronald H. Balson. Theodore Teddy Hartigan is a scion of a wealthy Washington, D.C. family who placed him into a comfortable job at the State Department and has had a diplomat's career. In 1938, as Hitler's rise continues, Teddy is reassigned to the U.S. consulate in Amsterdam to replace the fleeting staff. Teddy's job is to process visa applications, and by 1939, refugees from Nazi-conquered Poland, Austria, and other countries are desperate to secure passage to America. As Hitler sweeps through France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Denmark, and Holland, the screws tighten and law after law is passed to threaten the lives, indeed the very existence, of the Jewish people. When Teddy and his girlfriend Sarah are introduced to an orphaned young girl named Katie, who has been abandoned on the grounds of a nursery school, they agree to adopt her. Teddy comes to realize that he holds the key to saving lives, whether 5, 50, or 500, and makes the dangerous and selfless decision to join with underground groups to use his position at the consulate to rescue those with no other avenue of escape.
Well, that sounds very interesting.
This definitely, I almost didn't pick this one to talk about, but I had looked through a couple of them, and then reading that, this one shot to the top of my list because I love stories about ordinary people making a difference. And while you might argue that he's not ordinary because he's part of a wealthy DC family, but the idea that he was put into this career and maybe doing things that he didn't necessarily want to do, and then while he's over there, he decides to make this incredible decision to try to save lives. I just love those kind of stories. It's almost like an underdog story. And I also like to hear these interesting sides of, the World War II era that you don't always hear about.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing about historical fiction is getting to hear about the underdogs.
Yeah. The sides that you don't hear about because a lot of it always focuses on the actual war aspect. So,
right. I also just love historical fictions that take fictional characters and throw them into that world.
yeah, it always makes for very interesting reading.
It does. It does. So there are a lot of really good looking September releases. And I have to say, all of these sound fantastic.
Yeah, there's all of these are worth picking up for sure, in my opinion.
Except maybe my romance books.
Maybe. Those would be a harder sell for me.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with romance books.
That's true.
A good rom-com is good for the soul.
I mean, I did read that fantasy. It was a romantasy, I guess. I can't remember what it was called now, though. Curses and Cocktails. That's what it was. And that was really good. I loved that one.
Yeah. So These September new releases, obviously, there are so many more books coming out this month. Like, it's crazy. September, the fall in general is just huge for publishing. Like, there's going to be a lot of really good stuff coming out. So I'm definitely keeping my eyes on those new book lists.
Yeah, there was a ton. We talked about, 8 of them, and there was like 20, I think, on that list.
Yes. So these new releases specifically came from a bookshop.org article. No, we are not sponsored. That's just where I like to get my source of new books. So, what are you working on reading this week? Well, I guess you don't currently have a current read, but what are you most likely probably going to start?
Yeah, I'm lucky because I'm in that nice little in-between period where I haven't started anything and I'm not currently going through anything. So I can kind of just pick whatever. I think I'm going to go to the next Witcher book. That it feels like it's time to come back. I've taken a long enough break. I still remember a lot of the stuff, but some are getting fuzzy now. So I think it's that right time. However, the next Percy Jackson is also calling my name. So I don't know if I'm going to read both at once or if I'm just going to pick up one versus the other. We'll see.
Did you already get the next Percy Jackson on Libby?
No, I think I have to put a holdout for that maybe. So I guess that might be the determining factor.
All right, then. Yeah, I always hate that in between books feeling because when I finish a book, it's nice to kind of have a break, but at the same time, I feel like I should be reading something.
Right, but now it's like you have to decide which book, and that,
it's
as
always,
we both know, is so difficult for us.
It's always a disaster, and like with my arcs, like it could have just been my mood that I ended up DNFing a couple of them, but I was like, I don't know what to read. So I guess that brings me into my current read, which is called The Holiday Honeymoon Switch. And I got about 13% in so far. This is also an ARC. It's an advanced copy. It doesn't publish until October. But so far, I'm enjoying it. It seems to be about these two best friends named Holly and Ivy. Hence, the name of the book is Holiday Honeymoon Switch. So we have Holly and Ivy as main characters.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Clever.
Holly is set to get married on Christmas, but the day before the wedding, her fiance breaks up with her for somebody else. And so now there's this honeymoon in limbo, and I don't know what's going to happen yet, but I need to know what happens. I'm assuming the two friends go on the honeymoon together, but I'm not 100% sure, so I can't speak on that, but I'm excited to see where it goes. It's really good so far. I love the writing style.
That's good. I can't imagine, and I hope I never have to imagine that feeling.
No, that would be horrible.
Breaking up before the wedding.
Yeah, no, that's like just disastrous.
Oh man, you already have the honeymoon probably paid for by then too, so you might as well do it.
Everything's paid for. You're not getting a refund for anything. It literally says in all the contracts that we've signed for our own wedding, like if it's canceled for like whatever reason, like you forfeit like X amount of dollars.
Too bad, so sad. I think I would still have the party. I'd be like, we're showing up. I already paid for all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's gonna be weird for the guests.
Yeah, everyone's just like, ooh, he's gone crazy.
Yeah, so that's what I'm reading this week. I'm not sure what I'm going to start after that because I don't think I have any more arcs that publish in October. Plus also September, I'm supposed to be reading my shelves.
Right. You only have a few days, so.
I know. By the time the people are hearing this, though, it's already September. And I will be reading my shelves. I can promise you that. Fingers crossed.
Wait, isn't it you're not supposed to cross your fingers when you make a promise?
I promise. I don't know. I really have no idea. So with that, I hope everybody has another wonderful week. Hopefully you put some of these new releases onto your radar. It would make me so happy. I hope you pick up a good book. It's still going to be a little hot outside. Maybe we don't want to be outside when the corn is sweating.
Yeah, I got to avoid that apparently.
Got to avoid the corn sweat now. But as always, happy reading.